In the heart of the 12th century, a storm was brewing in the Holy Land. The Crusader states, established decades earlier, clung precariously to the Levantine coast. To the east, a new power was rising, a leader destined to unite the Muslim world and challenge the very existence of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, the great Sultan, Saladin. In the year 1177, Saladin saw his moment. The Kingdom of Jerusalem was vulnerable. Its king, Baldwin IV, was a mere 16-year-old, afflicted with leprosy, a disease that ravaged his body but could not touch his indomitable spirit. With the bulk of Jerusalem's army campaigning far to the north, Saladin gathered a massive force, said to be over 26,000 strong, and marched from Egypt, his sights set firmly on the holy city itself. The situation was dire. Panic gripped Jerusalem. With most of their knights away, only a tiny contingent was left to defend the kingdom. At its head stood the young, ailing king, Baldwin. Beside him was the formidable Reynold of Chatillon, a warrior of fearsome reputation, and about 80 Knights Templar led by their Grand Master, Odo of Saint-Amand. In total, they could muster fewer than 400 knights and a few thousand infantrymen, a force utterly dwarfed by Saladin's approaching host. Many nobles advised caution, urging the king to take refuge behind the safety of Jerusalem's walls and wait for the main army to return. But Baldwin IV, the leper king, refused to be a passive victim. He knew that to cower behind stone walls was to surrender the countryside and condemn his people to Saladin's advance. He would not wait for the storm to break. He would ride out to meet it. Displaying courage that defied his physical condition, Baldwin led his small army out from Jerusalem. They made for Ashkelon, a key coastal fortress, hoping to intercept Saladin's army. But the Sultan's forces were too numerous and too swift. They simply bypassed Ashkelon, leaving a token force to keep the Crusaders bottled up, and continued their march northward, unopposed. The path to Jerusalem lay open. Saladin, confident in his overwhelming advantage, grew careless. He allowed his army to spread out across the coastal plain, looting villages and farmlands, believing the Christian threat was neutralized. His commanders reveled in their easy advance, certain that victory was already theirs. This was a grave miscalculation. He had underestimated the resolve of his enemy, and the unwavering faith that fueled them. Inside Ascalon, King Baldwin and his knights were not idle. They were not trapped. They were waiting. They knew Saladin's objective was Jerusalem, and they knew his overconfidence was their greatest weapon. With the help of the Templars, who knew the land intimately, they broke out of Ashkelon and marched with incredible speed along the coast, hidden from Saladin's main force. They were a silver sliver of steel and faith, moving silently and purposefully through the dunes, a phantom army on a desperate mission. Their goal was to get ahead of Saladin's sprawling army and choose a battlefield of their own. They found it at a place called Montgisard near the town of Ramla. It was a hill overlooking the plain where Saladin's army was now scattered and disorganized, laden with plunder and unprepared for a fight. On the morning of November 25, 1177, the moment of truth arrived. From the crest of Montgisard, the small Christian army looked down upon a sea of enemies. Saladin's forces, caught completely by surprise, were in disarray. Tents were being struck, soldiers were scattered, and there was no semblance of a battle line. Seeing this, Baldwin, his young face wrapped in bandages to hide the effects of his disease, ordered his knights to prepare for the charge. The Bishop of Bethlehem rode before the ranks, holding aloft a relic of the true cross. He reminded them of the Maccabees, who had won a great victory for God against impossible odds on this very ground centuries before. The king, too weak to wield a sword himself, knelt before the sacred wood, his hands outstretched, praying for a miracle. As he rose, a cheer went up from the men. Their king, their holy relic, their faith. It was all the strength they needed. Then came the charge. With a thunderous roar of, "God wills it," the Crusader knights, a spearhead of Templars at the fore, plunged down the hillside. It was not a charge of desperation, but of righteous fury. They smashed into the disorganized center of Saladin's army like a thunderbolt from a clear sky. The impact was devastating. The Mamluk bodyguard of Saladin, his elite soldiers, tried to form a line but were swept away by the sheer velocity and ferocity of the Christian assault. Knights in heavy armor, lances couched, were an unstoppable force against the lightly armored, unprepared enemy. The infantry followed close behind, pouring into the breach the knights had created. Panic erupted in the Muslim ranks. Soldiers who had been casually looting moments before now dropped their spoils and fled for their lives. The surprise was total, the collapse immediate. Saladin himself was nearly captured in the chaos. He fought bravely, trying to rally his men, but the tide of fear was too strong. His own nephew was struck down in the fighting. Realizing the battle was lost, Saladin was forced to mount a swift racing camel and flee the field, protected only by the remnants of his personal guard. The retreat turned into a complete rout. The once mighty army dissolved into a terrified mob, hunted across the plains by the victorious Crusaders. For the next 12 miles, the chase continued. The road back to Egypt became a trial of survival, harassed by the Crusaders and local Bedouin tribes. Battered by unseasonable cold and heavy rains, Saladin's retreating army disintegrated. Thousands were lost, not just to the sword, but to starvation, exposure, and exhaustion in the harsh Sinai desert. Of the 26,000 who had marched so confidently from Egypt, fewer than a tenth would make it back. Against all logic, against all odds, the kingdom of Jerusalem had been saved. A 16-year-old boy, his body failing but his spirit unbroken, had led a handful of heroes to one of the most stunning victories of the Crusader era. The Battle of Montgisard became a legend. It was a testament to the power of courage, strategy, and unshakable faith. Baldwin IV, the leper king, would be remembered forever as the young lion who faced down the great Saladin and for one glorious day achieved the impossible. The victory secured the kingdom a precious decade of peace and proved that even in the darkest hour, a small flame of hope, when fanned by incredible bravery, can burn bright enough to hold back the night. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story of incredible courage, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more tales from history.